MegaMan, one of the cultural giants of the NES era, has over time ingrained itself as a quintessential experience for fans of the platforming genre. It's influenced countless sequels, fan games, and beloved indie projects such as Shovel Knight, for example. I, for one, played a ton of every main series Mega Man game as a kid, excluding 7 and 8, which I thought looked ugly. However, truth be told, the first game in this series has aged like a glass of milk in a sauna. The stages range from uninspired to unpleasant to inconceivably rotten. The music is boring and the sound design often irritating.
However, we do believe there is some value in discussing this game, and today we'll be looking at the 6 different Robot Masters and how they stack up in terms of quality. We say Robot Master and not bosses because we aren't talking strictly about the minuscule fights that often pass within 10 seconds. Instead, we're considering the bigger picture, including their stage, music, weapon, general coolness, and personal taste for the sake of making a much more interesting video. With this prelude out of the way, get your weapons ready and enjoy.
There's a famous quote from an old science fiction short story called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, wherein a hyper-advanced evil AI claims that, quote, there are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits and wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanostogram of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/billionth of the hate I feel for humans. I am convinced that this AI is what designed the Lekman stage, because I can think of no other plausible explanation for why this would be such a horrible clusterfuck mess of urethral bilge. All I could think about while suffering through this gauntlet of horror is how I wanted to pummel a Lekman into a heap of scrap metal with my bare hands. Whoever decided putting spinies on the already difficult platforming sections was a good idea is an asshole, and making the entire stage a tower where you can fall down multiple screens at a time is just ridiculous. It's like playing that game Get Over It, but 10 times worse because it doesn't even have the dignity granted by self-awareness. The idea that this stage is intended to be anything other than a godforsaken tool of torment is so alien to me that I can't even comprehend it. That ladder with the Watcher enemies knocked me down so many times that I was beginning to foam at the mouth and feel my blood pressure skyrocket. There's also one part where they literally repeat a room down to the pixel because the devs couldn't be bothered to make one more room or something. As if that wasn't bad enough, right before the final door there's one of those obnoxious pogo stick enemies called Big Eyes who do half your health in one hit and have insane health on their part. You just have to gamble and hope they do the big jump over the short hop and then run under them. Total chance. Oh, and if you expect a reprieve at the end in that cozy little chamber between the stage and the boss like the other games have, you're out of luck. In the original Mega Man, there's always a ton of stupid fuck shit in here to waste your time and piss you off, like these electric ladder bits. The music in this stage also sucks in my opinion, and having to listen to it for that long was driving me insane. Your reward for making it through that garbage heap is a boss that's incredibly hard to beat by fighting fair, so you'll more often than not take the lesser evil, which is killing him in under 5 seconds with his weakness weapon. Lastly, I can't understand for the life of me why a Lekman would be useful as a nuclear power plant overseer. Mega Man is always funny when you consider the logistics of how the Robot Masters fit into daily life fulfilling their intended purpose, and a Lekman is no different. I can't think of any situation where an electrician would be like, damn, this isn't working, have a Lekman fire a shock charge of lethal voltage at these wires, or something. That would probably just kill people half the time, and considering he had a sadistic side in other media, that sounds like a risky combination. The only thing good about a Lekman is his weapon is kinda fun, and I like how his sprite looks a lot. He's probably my second favorite looking Robot Master in the game. That alone doesn't spare a Lekman from the infinite scorn and hatred I have for his rotten stage, however, with Jack and I both agreeing wholeheartedly that he sucks overall.
This should have been reason enough to get rid of the ice mechanic in gaming altogether. Iceman stage is not beginning to end horrible, but it just doesn't feel right. My disdain for this level was amplified thanks to me figuring it was a good place to start my run, and while the length isn't a problem, the lack of game knowledge can even go as far as botch an entire playthrough. Just come into this stage with Thunderbeam for your sake. While Mega Man isn't known as a magnus opum of chiptune, Iceman's theme in specific sounded familiar and less wintry, more Beach Boys. Honestly, a Jedi's Fury could be this stage's backdrop and I could care less, trekking through crazy razies, killer bombs, and gabuals? I don't know, we'll settle with spines. Trekking through spines on loop is just not an enjoyable experience. The disappearing platform rooms have their own respective spines, so a big middle finger to Capcom for that, although you can bait the second one out of frame. I suffered for hours on the rotating footholder bit, only to get one up by Pink Kitty Rose, who showed off the magnet beam cheese, which inevitably made my blood boil. There's no better word to describe the design choice to put Big Eyes at the Robot Master doors other than unbelievable, because even after you slip through him, if you slip through him, it's followed up by an ice tunnel full of bombs with enough impact to likely finish the job anyways. Iceman isn't too bad on his own, but really are any of them, so yeah, water is wet. It is amazing there was something definitively worse than this.
I have absolutely no idea why he's called Gutsman, first things first. He seems more like Construction Man or something. Maybe it's guts as in bravery, but it's not like it takes bravery to jump around and chuck boulders at people. Which brings me to a similar point to what I touched on with Elecman. Why on earth would any construction worker want this guy on site? The boulders he throws around all explode in a burst of deadly shrapnel that looks totally random and unpredictable. All I can see him being used for is load bearing, and in that case why use a sentient robot instead of just a backhoe or something? Honestly, I don't care that much about that stuff, I just think it's sort of funny. It'd be dumb if I actually nicked points off for crap like that. His stage is short, and while irritating to new players for sure, I consider it to actually be rather manageable and fair. Those platforming sections can feel really rough, but once you get the timing down are much less crazy. The enemies are mostly placed fairly, save for maybe one of the pickaxe guys, and the instant death spikes aren't too likely to claim many victims the way the stage is situated. It can be a bit boring doing the repetitive early parts of the stage though, which are impossible to speed past even if you're familiar with it. The music is nothing too impressive, but not actively irritating. That honor belongs to the sound the moving platforms make. Why they had to constantly make noise is beyond me, and you'd think they'd decide on a sound that didn't slowly ebb away the player's sanity. The little corridor leading up to the boss having enemies is usually annoying, but Mets are pretty harmless, so I'm not too mad about this one. As a boss, Gutsman is actually one of the better ones in my opinion. He has a whopping 2 attacks if you count the landing stun as one, which is one more than most other Robot Masters have in this game. It adds another layer to the fight to have to time jumps well to avoid his rock chucking, and I think bombs are a pretty balanced weakness. They don't kill him so fast that the fight is over in mere seconds, but are still effective enough to give you a good edge over him. He's my personal favorite looking Robot Master also. I like his bulky look and square jaw. Jack finds his stage a bit more annoying than I do, so he had him ranked lower than Iceman, but the difference was marginal, and that evil footholder segment at the end was the final nail in the coffin for Gutsman being better to me.
When I originally bought this game off the Wii Shop years back, Cutman was my first, and what a way to lose your virginity. Even now, 2 days after I beat him for the second time in that day alone, it's hard remembering his stage at all. From the color palette to the music, it's just all around unremarkable. In fairness, it's a pretty harmless, albeit mediocre stage that doesn't have much that feels truly unique to the Cutman moniker besides the giant scissor machine, which I guess somewhat plugs that hole anyways. It's a fun example of classic vertical platforming that's done well, in part to it being about half leisure and half timing based through the adhering Susies. Cutman himself is about as hard as it gets at base level, but is one of the earliest instances of good arena design I can think of. It's not deep, but overall this stage is benign and thus pales in comparison to those above it.
If you want to know a rather obscure fun fact, Bombman was actually partnered with Gutsman for demolition projects, so having similar jobs actually makes sense. So I won't knock Bombman in that regard. A robot lighting bombs actually makes a lot of sense considering it's a dangerous job for humans and probably reduce the number of accidents significantly. Bombman ranks pretty high for a few reasons. First, bombs are a cool thing to be themed after. Secondly, his stage is one of the more well-designed ones, with generally fair obstacles and slightly more background detail than some of the other stages with those tower things. It's nothing like what the series would have from the second game onwards, but for this game's standards it's something. Also, he has pretty decent stage music, which stands far superior to the 15-second loop of Gutsman's theme and the irritating Elecman theme. I'd say it's my second favorite behind Cutman's stage theme. Anyways, Bombman's stage is actually pretty fun. I like the bomb guys that jump out of the pits and the screwdrivers make for solid obstacles. The killer bombs can feel a bit over the top at times, but I'd say they're fair for the most part. That one room where you enter from a ladder and need to jump across some platforms demands insanely fast timing, and as you can see I barely pulled it off. Sniper Joe's make some appearances here, and as what I'd call the second most iconic enemy in the series behind Mets, I suppose that's worth mentioning. The fight with Bombman is my favorite Robot Master fight, I'd say. It's totally doable with the Mega Buster, which is fun, and his attacks are dodgeable without inhuman reaction time being asked of you. With a cool stage, a cool thing to be based off of, and a cool fight, Bombman is a commendable Robot Master worthy of the rank of runner-up.
I can't imagine anything but that Fireman is the sole reason we have a Mega Man 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you get the point, there's 11 games, but this stage is the only one I've seen the whole community agree is fun, replayable, whatever adjective you please. It's just far and away the best this game has to offer, and the only Robot Master who's all around gratifying. From the drop in to the boss fight, it's memorable, and so much so you start to develop psychological muscle memory rather quickly by way of the tight platforming and constant onslaught of molten pixels. It's best fitting as the finale and plays like it is, as each individual room had obvious thought put towards them, and for multiple you have to utilize rather unconventional abilities to traverse unharmed, especially that room. You know, that room. Nonetheless, even Fireman's fun, as in the boss. It lasts 10 seconds and gives, in my opinion, the most useless weapon in the game, but hey, no shame. Alex already mentioned the utter futility of the Robot Masters in terms of Wily taking over the world, but I don't think it gets much worse than he can burn trash to a crisp at over 8,000 degrees. It's like the Survivor stand from Stone Ocean, just so painfully not scary at all. I don't even know if the Mega Man comics are legends or canon, but one thing their corny and laughably stupid commentary can't take away is the delightful fun that is the Fireman stage.
Thanks so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed. This is the start of a very lengthy series of videos where we intend to eventually cover all 11 entries in the main series. While this is by far and away the worst, we hope you still got a kick out of our assessment of each Robot Master. Next week, Jack will be putting out a ranking of the bosses of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, so be sure to tune into that later if that sounds like it'd be up your alley. That's all for now. Deuces.